Brad Keselowski finally reveals his 5 greatest NASCAR rivals. A car goes airborne at 190 miles per hour. The crowd doesn't scream. They go silent first, the kind of silence that arrives before the brain has processed what the eyes just witnessed. That silence, the one that settled over Talladega like smoke in April 2009, is where this story actually starts. Not at Bristol, not at Texas, not at the moment Brad Keselowski bought a race team and tried to put distance between himself and everything that came before. Here, this afternoon, this car, this choice. He was a part-time driver in a borrowed seat, 3 wrecks already on his nationwide series record, 1 first-lap DNF at Las Vegas in his only Hendrick Motorsports start. He was, in his own words, almost at the point of getting cut. Then came Talladega. And the final lap, and the decision that introduced him to everyone who would spend the next 15 years either cheering him on or waiting for him to pay for it. He has now said publicly what he was thinking in that moment. It was either be black flagged or go win the race. I chose to go win the race. No ambiguity, no revision. That sentence, the precision of it, the refusal to apologize for the logic, is the key to everything that follows. 5 rivalries, 5 different men, 5 different prices. And in each case, the same question running underneath: how much is a win actually worth? Carl Edwards. On the final 2 laps of the Aaron's 499, Keselowski and Edwards had done something that had never been done at Talladega before. Tandem drafting at speed from 8th and 9th place all the way to the front. With 1 lap remaining, Edwards led. With half a lap remaining, Keselowski made his move inside the tri-oval. Edwards went to block. Keselowski held his line. The contact sent Edwards airborne into the catch fence. Edwards climbed out of the wreckage. And then, shades of Ricky Bobby, as the broadcast called it. He ran the rest of the way across the start-finish line on foot. The crowd cheered for the man in 2nd place. The crowd cheered for the man whose car was embedded in the fence. This was the first thing Brad Keselowski's career victory lap looked like from the outside. The following year, at Atlanta, Edwards waited. He let Keselowski pull alongside him. Then he turned left, across the nose of Keselowski's car. Deliberately. Keselowski went airborne. Hit the wall on the driver's side A-pillar. The roof nearly came down. It was so violent that NASCAR redesigned the car's spoiler geometry in the aftermath, specifically to prevent what these 2 men had done to each other from happening again. The governing body had to change the machinery because the rivalry had outpaced the rules. NASCAR eventually declared it over. By decree. The sport rarely ended rivalries by decree. The fact that it had to was its own kind of verdict. What Keselowski has said about Edwards since is not anger. It is something closer to clarity. He speaks about that final lap the way a man speaks about a door he opened and couldn't close again. He chose to go win the race. That was the choice. Everything after it, the retaliation, the redesigned car, the crowd cheering for the man who lost, was the cost of the choice. He has never said he would have made a different one. Kyle Busch. Bristol, 2010. Driver introductions. 150,000 people in the stands. Juan Pablo Montoya, a former Formula One world champion, leaned over to Keselowski before the microphone and dared him to say it. Keselowski walked to the mic and said it. Kyle Busch is an ass. The crowd erupted. Not laughed, erupted. Which meant it was already true before he said it. He had merely been the first one willing to say it publicly, with a live mic in front of everyone. What Keselowski has revealed about this feud, years removed, cuts against the simple reading. He has said the rivalry only holds meaning when both men are frontrunners. That it is about relevance, not hatred. The Bristol insult mattered because both of us were racing for wins under the brightest lights, he has said, which is a more honest and more unsettling thing to say than anything he said in the heat of it. It means the rivalry was never really personal. It was professional. They were the same kind of driver, aggressive, unsentimentally honest, willing to wreck someone who blocked when they shouldn't have blocked. and they kept arriving at the same piece of track at the same time. That context does not soften what was said at Bristol. It makes it stranger. You do not grab a microphone and say that about a man you merely see as a professional obstacle. Kyle Busch's response at the time was a study in contempt. "Who? I don't know who you're talking about. I saw it, but I passed it." The dismissal of a veteran to a rookie. 7 years later, at the 2017 Championship 4 at Homestead, they were both on the starting grid with championships already in their back pockets, both capable of a second title. Someone asked Busch what he'd give Keselowski for Christmas. "He's already going to hell, so it's not like I've got to buy him a trip there." The 2017 title went to Martin Truex Jr. Neither Busch nor Keselowski won it. That fact sits in the record without comment. In 2025, both men appeared together in a commercial. A DeLorean. Keselowski said, "Ah, there he is, the new two-time champion." Something that might have been warmth. The camera was rolling. The reconciliation happened on film, which is different from it happening. Jeff Gordon. This one requires a correction to the version that became public record. The received history of Texas 2014 is Keselowski and Gordon made contact on a late overtime restart. Gordon got a cut tire, finished 29th, was furious, confronted Keselowski on pit road, and the brawl that followed became one of the most replayed incidents in the sport's modern era. That part is accurate. What has only recently been confirmed, Kevin Harvick started it, deliberately, calculatedly, by his own admission. Harvick was standing behind Keselowski on pit road, watching Gordon's fury build, and made a decision. "I know what I was thinking when I pushed him into the fight, and then it caused the chaos." Harvick has since said, "My mind was, we need chaos. We needed the story to go elsewhere." He gave Keselowski a shove forward, directly into Gordon's reach. Gordon grabbed him by the collar. The brawl ignited. Harvick went on to win the championship that year. The story did go elsewhere. Keselowski did not know, in that moment, that he had been used. He was the instrument of another man's strategy, shoved into a brawl that benefited neither him nor Gordon, that damaged the final chapter of Gordon's celebrated career, and that Harvick has since called, with a laugh, one of those moments, not the best thing for your kids to find on YouTube. What Gordon thought of this, he has not said publicly.
But I do know that it's my job to race 100%, and that's what I did today. Didn't wreck anyone, but I certainly race hard, and that's nothing to be ashamed of.
What the record shows is that Gordon's retirement 2 years later was preceded by the ugliest incident of his farewell season, an incident he was, in part, maneuvered into. Keselowski, when asked about Texas, speaks about what happened on the track. He does not mention the shove. He may not know the full calculation behind it, or he may know exactly and has chosen to leave it unaddressed. Both possibilities are interesting. Matt Kenseth. This one is colder than the others, more deliberate, more honest about what the sport actually is. 2015, Richmond. Keselowski bumped Kenseth during the race, allowing teammate Joey Logano to win. NASCAR ruled it intentional. They parked Keselowski for the following race, one of the harshest penalties issued in the sport in years. He accepted it without significant public protest. What Keselowski has revealed about Kenseth since is not something that reads like a rivalry confession. It reads like a professional assessment. He does not describe Kenseth the way he describes Busch, with the friction of two men who occupied the same identity. He describes him the way a man describes someone who taught him something he did not want to learn. That October at Charlotte, Kenseth returned the favor. He did not yell, he did not give interviews, he did not post anything on social media. He said what he had to say at speed, in a race, where it cost Keselowski something he could not get back. Then he went home. You have to respect it, Keselowski has said, even when it costs you. That sentence, quiet without performance, is more revealing than any post-race confrontation. Because it is the sentence of a man who understands the language he has been speaking his entire career and recognizes in Kenseth a man who is fluent in the same language and significantly more patient. Patience in that language is a weapon. Kevin Harvick. The rivalry no one fully mapped because the most important part of it happened off-camera. Loudon, 2014, late race. Keselowski and Harvick were running for the win when Joey Logano made contact with Keselowski, who then unsettled Harvick. Logano won. Harvick finished 30th. After the race, Keselowski approached Harvick to explain the sequence. Harvick, by Keselowski's own account, was ready to throw a punch, not a post-race interview complaint. A punch. He tracked me back to my motorhome, Keselowski has said. The cameras were not there for that. The television crews were not there for that. The version of Kevin Harvick the public knew, measured, occasionally sardonic, a champion's composure, was not the man standing in that parking lot. Keselowski walked away, asked him to calm down, said, according to his own recollection, "I just told him, get here." Meaning, meet me later when you can hear me. Harvick never fully de-escalated. Weeks later, at Texas, when Keselowski and Gordon were entangled on pit road, Harvick chose to act on something. He described it afterward as a very calculated moment. He shoved Keselowski into the fire, watched the brawl ignite, and went on to win the 2014 championship. What Keselowski later said about Harvick does not include the word rivalry. He uses precision instead. He says Harvick was one of the greats I had to figure out every week. He says this with a flatness that sounds, to anyone listening carefully, like a man describing a problem he never fully solved. Harvick retired in 2023. He has since admitted the Texas shove was one of his least proud moments. He says he would recalculate it today. He laughed when he said it. Keselowski has not publicly responded to that admission. The silence is its own statement. 5 rivals. 5 different lessons in the same subject. Edwards taught him the cost of the first win. Busch taught him that public contempt has a shelf life of exactly as long as both men remain relevant. Gordon taught him, though he may not have known it in real time, that he could be positioned as someone else's instrument without his consent. Kenseth taught him that patience, deployed precisely, is more damaging than anger. Harvick taught him that the man standing calmly behind you at the post-race confrontation may be the most dangerous man in the garage. He bought a race team in 2022. RFK Racing, the weight of ownership on top of the wheel. Whether that changes the calculation, whether there is now something worth more than the win, is not a question he has answered directly. What he has done is name these 5 men. By name. On record. With the kind of specificity that does not come from forgiveness. It comes from having thought about it for a long time. Talladega, April 2009. The car goes airborne. The crowd goes silent. And somewhere in that silence, before the broadcast cuts back, before Edwards begins his walk across the finish line, before any of the 15 years that followed have yet been written, a decision has already been made. I chose to go win the race. He has never said otherwise.